Hey everyone, welcome. Welcome to the G Woman Media, G Woman Voices of Influence series. This is where we spotlight women whose voice, whose work, and whose impact are shaping the future. I'm your host, Clara Rufai. And my guest today is a woman who is redefining what it means to sell, bringing structure, strategy, and humanity back into sales leadership and helping teams with confidence, clarity, and consistency. The woman of influence that we're celebrating today is none other than Carla Watt. Welcome, Carla. It is lovely to have you here on G Woman Voices of Influence.
Thank you, Clara. It's really good to be here.
Amazing. I'm glad to have you here. And just before we kick off into our conversation, I'd like to just share a little bit about Carla. Carla Watt is an internationally recognized sales performance partner and founder of Watt Next Consultancy with over 20 years of frontline and leadership experience. She specializes in transforming underperforming sales teams into confident, high performing revenue drivers. Her expertise spans sales leadership, development, onboarding design, and operational structure, all of it rooted in human connection and emotional intelligence. Carla is the creator of the Sales Manager's Blueprint and practical performance frameworks that help managers scale without chaos. She's passionate about championing women in business. She equips leaders to sell smarter, to manage better, and to grow sustainably. Carla, again, welcome.
Thank you, Clara. I feel like I've been busy.
Right, so I know. Oh no. All right. So Carla, let's take this, in overdrive straight away. So let's talk about your origin moment, right? You, Carla, you've spent over 2 decades in sales leadership and across fast growth industries. Tell us, what was it that inspired you to move from being in sales performance to now becoming the architect of it?
I think it's because there is only so many times you can go and work for a company and help a company and train a company. And I just realized that most companies seem to have very similar issues with how they onboard, how they start, how they progress. And I've noticed for every company that I joined or worked with that I was writing everything bespoke for them to enable them, to help them. And I just thought at some point, I'm going to need to do this on a bigger and a grander scale just to help, because there's so many people out there in sales with no training, and most people fall into a sales role. They don't necessarily wake up and say, yes, I want to be a sales manager one day. It just happens. So, and without that training or support or help or a company that can provide that for them, it can be a miserable road. And I've lived that miserable road, and I realized that it didn't have to be it was a long journey for me, and I had to figure it out along the way. Fortunately, I had some very good managers, but I also had some not so great managers as well, which still taught me a lot. So I wanted to kind of make that difference and make a sales journey for somebody a happier place.
Amazing. And when would you say you realized that this wasn't just a career, but your calling?
I think it was because I was good at sales. Most people say when you're good at sales, you're not great at running people and you shouldn't do both. And I disagree with that. But I do come across a lot of people that really shouldn't be in charge of people without the support. A lot of people just go and do that role, and they don't support them in that role. And when you've got a team of loads of different personalities, loads of different backgrounds and cultures, which is what I like. I felt I learned as much as I could give. So that's why I felt it was probably more of a calling to bring it back into the human side of things, of actually getting people to understand themselves and be themselves in sales, rather than just being put into a box like everybody else and say, this is what you have to go and do just because one person can do it really well.
I love it. I love it. Giving sales a human face. That's amazing. I'd love to just stop here and acknowledge the beautiful women from the G Woman Media ecosystem. Welcome, ladies. Welcome to everyone who's watching us. And I just want to take a comment quickly from Dr. Pauline Crawford. She says, good to hear this interview. Carla has an enlightened perspective on sales which brings the personal touch. Isn't that the truth?
Thank you, Paulie.
All right, so we continue the conversation. I want to talk about the influencer behind the influencer. We know you're an influencer, so but tell me. And sales can often feel like numbers driven and transactional, but your work is deeply human in that mix. So, who would you say, if there was somebody who influenced your philosophy around leadership and around performance? Perhaps there was a mentor, or perhaps there was a moment, or even a challenge, that shaped how you lead and how you do your work today. Who would that be?
So it was with one particular company, and it was with a very good sales manager of mine, and it was probably in one of my very first roles. So that shaped a lot for me, because it wasn't, the damage hadn't already been done, but I disliked it out, but I was going into an environment that was thriving really well. And they were all female, and they were all supportive of each other. And I do remember it was back in the days when all the numbers were on boards around us, so we could all see what everybody was doing, where the targets were, where we had to be. And when I very, very first then I started my sales journey, I remember getting one on the board, and all the rest of the girls were flying with all their big numbers, and feeling that my one was so bad, and you like, oh my, I'd get me out of here. This is my worst day ever. And I just remember my sales manager turning around to me and saying, Carla, if you didn't get that one, we'd have to go and find that one so we can complete the day. So she turned my one contribution into something so significant. And she made me feel so empowered that I flew after that. And I remember going home thinking how badly I was feeling to how great I was feeling. That had a massive impact on me. And then, because the girls in the office were so great, there was one girl who was particularly fabulous. She only had to work 3 days a week, because she hit her numbers in 3 days. And I remember thinking to myself, right, and now I know what great looks like. Now I know what really good looks like. I know I'm not. I know this girl is. So I remember looking at her numbers thinking, how am I going to get that good? So I set myself a goal, and I listened and I learned quickly. And what I did was I started to say to myself, I'm going to hit her numbers in the 5 days. So I broke it down. Let's do it in 5 days. And I did it in 5 days, which told me I could do it. But I had very supportive people around me. And then all I had to do was go, well, I already know how to do this. I've just got to condense it down. So how do I condense it down, and how do I work that out? So I started working out my own systems. Hence, I write my own systems now, because my mind has been through it. And then I managed to get that down to where I was hitting her numbers in 3 days. And it wasn't to beat her, and it wasn't to be better than her. It was because I knew what good looked like, and I wanted to feel that good again. So that's so when I see targets and roles like that, I break them down.
I love it. And that's really, really powerful. 3 things that I took away from there is sometimes it only takes that one person to empower you, to encourage you by something they teach you or something they tell you. It takes that one teacher sometimes. And then being open, being teachable, being willing to learn from somebody that you think, you admire. And then the third thing, write it down, write your own systems. This is beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing. It's amazing. Really tell you that. So let's talk now about let's talk about a little bit about impact and transformation. And where I'm going is, you're somebody who specializes in helping teams sell smarter, manage better, without losing the human element. Now, for a woman here who's watching this, or who will watch it in the replay, who is perhaps a founder or a sales leader, who feels overwhelmed by targets and turnovers and chaos, what is that transformation that you create when you step into an organization? What is, perhaps maybe you have a story of a team that went from underperforming to high performing under your guidance. What changed for that team?
So first of all, I always do an audit. So I'll do a sales audit, and I'll do it on the team, but I'll also do it on the company, because there is a system I use called Gapology. And Gapology will tell you if it's a leadership issue or an employee issue. Because whilst we, always look at the employees like underperforming under this. Well, have you trained them? So Gapology will start off whether it has 3 sections, and we have like a knowledge-based section. So have we hired, as a leadership, have we hired them correctly? Have we hired the right talent, and have we onboarded them correctly? Have we trained them correctly? Do they have the knowledge we need? And then do they have an ongoing training plan? And then outside of that, it's an importance gap. And the importance is, I actually keep this here because I always keep it beside me because I keep it for myself. So the important gap is, did we set the prioritizations of what we really are looking at for a company? Did we communicate that correctly? And did we set expectations? And then the third one I work on is the action plan. So the action plan for the company would be, is the culture correct? Can these people actually thrive? Do they feel safe in this culture to be able to thrive? Did we ask them for some commitment? Because a lot of people just go, do this, do this, do this, and with no commitment coming back. And we'll say, right, for the commitment coming back from the employee would be, this is what we're expecting. We want you to commit to this. And then we need to hold them accountable as well. Now, if all those questions are asked on that Gapology, I would say if all of them are a no, we didn't do this, no, we didn't do this, that's an entire company leadership issue. But if you say, yes, actually, we've ticked all these boxes, then that's an employee issue. And then that is something whether that employee should be within the company at all. So it does work both ways. So I make sure that it does work both ways. And when you get that alignment of a company understanding that they have a responsibility, but also the sales team having a responsibility, and they both see that both of them are working towards it, then they're prepared to join the game. And it's always the communication. But if you don't have that set in stone from the very beginning, that's where your chaos will come from. But if you put that into place, your teams will thrive. Or I call it the step up or step off process, because your teams will either step up because you're supporting them and you're getting them to that, or they will step off because they probably are realizing it's not the role for them. It's not that they're not good at it. They just may not feel that that is the right company or the right role for them. And instead of going through a hard process, it kind of falls into that way.
Powerful. I got culture, I got commitment, and I got accountability. So those are 3 very powerful concepts. And also segregating to make sure, is it the leadership or is it the employees? And this user says, that's correct, Clara. Sometimes it takes only that one person to empower you to be the best. Amazing.
It really does.
Yes, it does. We'll take that. We'll take the conversation forward. Now let's talk about your signature superpower, because every woman of influence certainly has a superpower, and I know you're no different, Carla. So what is that Carla Watt secret sauce that turns perhaps confusion into clarity when you walk into a sales environment that isn't working? For instance, what's the true gift that you bring into that environment?
The difference would be is I've done it from the beginning. I've done it as a telesales person. I've moved up and done so many different sales roles. So when I sit with a team and they say, oh, those numbers can't be hit, or this can't be hit, and I can go, I'll tell you what, I can pick up this phone and let's see if I can, and I'll do it with them. So it'll be a case of let's go for it. Let's work together on this. So they see that empowerment. They see that, oh, somebody's actually willing to not just stand in front of me and say, please do this. That person's actually going to pick up the phone and show me how to do this.
So your lived experiences do help you.
Oh, yeah. And I've worked in so many different industries that I can draw from so many different industries and have lots of companies are very tunnel vision on industry specific. You've got to know this, and they ignore other talents. So that means they're disregarding different cultures, different ideas, different people. And that's a big mistake I see.
That's so true. That's so true. The fact that you've lived through it and now you're trying to architect it, to make it better, to systemize it so people can succeed. That's I think is a very powerful concept. And let's I'm talking about amplification. If we want to talk about amplification, Carla, one thing I want to say is at G Women Media, we are deeply committed to amplifying women's voices, helping them grow in confidence, in visibility, and influence. So I want to ask you, given your focus on human-centered sales, and powerful conversations. How do you think that women can truly own the room? How do you think they can truly lead powerful sales conversations with clarity? How can they negotiate better to win every single time?
Be authentic. Be authentic, because when you're not, people can see all the way through it. So if you're authentic and you show your human side, everybody feels that they've got to have this persona to get,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it works for some people, but it doesn't work for everybody. So I would always train people more to have the confidence in themselves, not to stick
Mm-hmm.
themselves into a box, to really then let their personality shine. Because once their personality shines and their confidence grows, it enables a lot more than just sales. It enables life in general, because you've got the confidence to go and do things. And I've seen plenty of salespeople that I've worked with flourish, you know, because they've not been put into a box and just told to read a script. They've been allowed to actually take ownership. And I find that if you can do that, even as a sales leader, I will stand there and put my hands up and say when I've made mistakes. And that makes you human.
Mm-hmm. I actually was going to ask you, what does that do, not just for their careers, but for their economic power? And I think you closed that off nicely. You know, be authentic. I mean, you can't go wrong. You cannot go wrong with that.
You can't go wrong with it,
Definitely.
because people will see through it if not. And then once you've lost the trust,
Absolutely.
building trust is harder. It's a bigger mountain to climb.
So just hold on to it, be authentic. And Dr. Lisa Fennell, she's watching us, and she says authenticity builds trust, and trust is what actually drives sustainable sales. Would you agree?
I would totally agree with that. Definitely. Definitely be that way.
I thought you might. I thought you might. Okay, Carla, so tell me, what is your message to women? If every woman watching us today could perhaps walk away with one belief about sales, about leadership, or even about her own capability, what would you speak into her heart right now?
I would say remove the fear. Don't let fear cripple you. And it really does mean that if you need to pick up the phone, pick it up. It doesn't matter if you make a mistake. It's showing up. It's showing up. It's the not showing up that will just keep you stuck to where you are. If you show up and just push yourself through the hardest stages, you suddenly then will turn around one day and look back and go, it wasn't so bad.
Remove the fear, show up,
Mm-hmm.
feel the fear, and do it anyway. No one ever went wrong with that advice. Thank you so much, Carla. I've had so much fun talking to you today. And I'd like to thank you, for sharing your voice, for sharing your nuggets, your wisdom with us today on Voices of Influence. And what I'd like to say to everyone watching us here now and who would watch the replay is to remember this. When a woman trusts herself, she transforms her life. When she shares her voice, she transforms the world. And this has been G Woman Media Voices of Influence, a place where women's voices are not just heard, but they're amplified and celebrated. And I'm your host, Clara Rufai. You keep shining.
Thank you, Clara.